Welcome to a special edition of a Bank Holiday 3Cs live with myself and Sara as usual. Today we're joined by a very special guest. Is Bob Kirke. And if I accidentally call him Dad during this interview, it's because he actually is my dad. So we have a few announcements to make today. One, I'm wearing normal people clothes. I've drawn my eyebrows on. This can only mean one thing. It's a very special day. It is Sara's birthday. Ha ha ha. Happy birthday, Sara.
Happy birthday. Well,
so that's all of our excitement out of the way. And now, obviously, we wanted to chat a little bit today to my dad as somebody who has experienced a cancer referral pathway recently, but also previously as well. I know your background and know your story, but perhaps Sara would like to ask you a couple of questions.
I'd love to, Bob. I'd like to learn a little bit about your recent journey. Starting with, did you contact your GP and have a telephone referral, or how did this work?
Right. To be fair, this all started in January this year when Emma noticed that I had a strange-looking mole. And as with all these things, I put it off, and Christmas came and lockdown came and all the rest of it. And then I noticed in the mirror that it actually grown and changed shape. So I didn't contact the doctor. I wrote a letter. My wife took a photo of it and I posted that to the GP. And just literally composed a letter that said, do you think this is worthy of investigation? That was about 9 o'clock in the morning when I posted it. By 1:30, her secretary had come onto the phone and said, Mr. Kirke, we will, as a matter of urgency, refer this on to the dermatology department at Castle Hill, which is one of the whole hospitals.
So did you write a letter with a photo and deliver that to your service?
Yeah, I wrote that, and then I posted it through the where you post prescriptions, prescriptions, because they don't have a letterbox. So I thought, put it through there, seeing as everything, because everything is, you can get face-to-face appointments, because I've seen people coming in and out, but they don't like it. You have to knock on the door and you're greeted with masks and visors and PPE, and I thought, I don't want to put them to that trouble. It seemed to be causing a bit of fuss, and I didn't want to cause a bit of fuss, so I posted it through the prescription box. An hour and a bit later, I got a reply. Yeah.
That's a fantastic turnaround. So within a couple of hours, you've got a call back from your GP, and what happened then?
Right, it was a GP secretary, and they said, they've been talking, and she said, right, we will refer this as a matter of urgency to Castle Hill. Yeah. And you will get an appointment either by telephone or by letter in the next week. Well, 2 days later, I got a telephone call that said, right, we made an appointment for you at Castle Hill Dermatology Department and for 3 days' time. So that was only the following Monday. Strangely enough, I got the letter on the day I had the appointment. I got the letter to say I've got an appointment. But yeah, I ended up there. People who don't know Castle Hill, it's the most difficult thing we had was to find the dermatology department, because it's a massive site and it's all separate buildings with half a dozen car parks that are usually packed. You can't get a parking space. And I was expecting to have to go in on my own, leave Sue in the car, etc., etc. Well, no, we found the dermatology place. And instead of there were seats for about 30, but there were just 6 people in, and there were never, ever more than 6 people. So as literally as one went out, another one came in. The appointment was 10 minutes late, which is, I think, is good for NHS. Very good for NHS. And but it's on the same day, so it must have been good. Yeah. And literally, then the lady examined it with some kind of an instrument and said, "No, Mr. Kirke, it's not cancerous. You can literally cover it with Vaseline and rub that crusty top off. And then every time you get a bath or a shower, keep rubbing it, and eventually it will disappear." And it was quite a relief, because in the past I've had 2 taken off my back that required, well, a small operation to take the 2 off and half a dozen stitches in each one. So I thought the whole process was wonderful. I mean, Emma kept saying to me, "Dad, it will be fairly quick because they haven't got many customers." I thought, but you don't know, do you? You know, and it really was that quick, that efficient, that kind, and very sympathetic. And also, when I walked in, the lady had all my old notes up, going right back to the first time I'd had anything done. And she was saying, "Yes, I can see you've had these 2 removed. We'll have a look at this one." I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The only problem, I had to wear a mask, which I found quite disconcerting. But, you know, that's what you had to do. So that was fine by me. No problems.
One of the things I remember you telling me about the appointment, Dad, was that she's taken samples for testing anyway, even though she's very convinced that it isn't anything to be concerned about. But she was giving you advice about general health, so making you wear the mask because of, you know, age and everything else. So you have to wear it. So it was almost like there was a general feeling of well-being from the appointment rather than just specifically talking about that as well, wasn't there?
Well, yes-ish. If you're being told, "Well, Mr. Kirke, at your age," what? At your age, and with diabetes, I think you really should be wearing a mask everywhere you go. Oh, okay. Right. Well, yes, I suppose the only thing I was slightly disconcerted about, I don't like the way they do this. She said, "Right, if you don't hear anything within 2 weeks, it's fine. If we have to ring you up, it's because actually it is cancer and it's not what we think it is." And I thought, I would rather be rung up anyway and somebody say, "No, Mr. Kirke, that's fine. The diagnosis is what it was. Thank you very much." So I don't worry about it, but it's just that little bit of nervousness until I get over the 2-week period. Otherwise,
I think I can relate really well here, Bob, because as a cancer patient myself, the hardest part was the wait for the results. Because even if you've had surgery and had something removed, or you followed the right care plan, the protocol of the Vaseline, visibly you might be seeing it reduce in size, but you want the peace of mind of knowing that it's not cancerous. And I guess that you've had a cancerous history previously, so that makes you diligent. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are a cancerous family, if that's the right word, on both sides. We're very much into. Yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
It's all right, don't worry. But we do a lot of family history. We can go back and we can find my great-granddad died of carcinoma of the stomach. My granddad died of anal cancer. My dad died of pancreatic liver cancer. My cousin Jack has been treated for bladder cancer. My cousin Peter died very, very recently of bowel cancer, and Uncle Jacob died of leukemia. So we've got all that in the Kirke family. And then on the other side, Gillings, it's all skin cancers. Cousin Joy has just had another 2 or 3 removed from her forehead. And Christine's just having to go in now to have quite an extensive, no, she didn't say melanoma, but it was something of that ilk removed from her forehead, which will require about 25 stitches. So yes, we are very aware of cancer, and it's I wouldn't say think about it, but regularly. But you've got to be aware of genetics, I think, and you've got to be aware of what's happening in the family. And I think my brother, I mean, he's had sort of investigations. They tend out to be polyps in his bowel, but again, it's because of great granddad, granddad, etc. Yeah, so we are very aware, really, and of course with Emma's, I mean, she had the double mastectomy, so we're very much aware of what's out there.
And I think actually, to be fair, Dad, it makes you more vigilant generally. I mean, having seen you have the skin cancers removed and knowing about it in the family, obviously in Australia, we've got relatives there who've had it as well. It makes me more vigilant and conscious of using skin protection if I am out in the sun. You know, I think it does help you be more mindful almost, you know. But it doesn't necessarily make me fearful. I'm not worried about it. It's not like I wouldn't go out in the sun. I mean, obviously, looking at yourself, you seem to have got a bit of a tan, so you can't be that, scared of the sun.
No, you know where that comes from, because on your granddad Bob's side, I mean, he spent time in Mesopotamia in the army. He could pass himself off as an Iraqi and a Kuwaiti and shop for food in the market for the other lads in the platoon, because he was so dark and he was so swarthy. Mm-hmm. And then on Grandma's side, they were water gypsies, they were bargemen. They spent all their lives in the sun. Mm. And if you go back in my history, my grandma, who I never met, and my uncle Fred, who I never met, both died of TB. Now, in my dad's mind, the more fresh air that your body could get, the better. Mm-hmm. So at the opportunity, it was get your shirt off. Mm-hmm. And of course, and then I worked for 3 years on a building site. What do you do there? The lads take the shirts off and wear swimming trunks. Mm-hmm. That's what you do. You would have been laughed off the site if I'd have turned up in a hat, sunscreen, gloves, and a pair of Wellington boots.
I have to say, Bob, I might be wearing a hat, some sunny, and fancy dress this afternoon myself. Who knows?
But in those days, I mean, it wasn't an issue. It never was. I mean, whether you were digging roads or, like I was, putting tiles on roofs, that's what you did. There was no ever thought of cancer. Skin cancer? No, never heard of it. Didn't exist. But you can see how it builds up, over the years. And my main message to anybody would be, at the moment, don't be frightened of wasting doctors' times. I mean, I think this one will probably be, in some respects, a waste of time, but not in their view, because if it had been another skin cancer, it would have been dealt with quickly, it would have been taken off, and there would have been no complications or issues. And that's the point. The longer you leave it and the longer you don't do anything about it, it's not going to go away. It's not like flu or corona. Eventually, it will disappear. No, it doesn't. They just get bigger and bigger. And the ones I had taken out eventually were bleeding quite profusely. You know, I mean, that was one of the signs when Emma's mum was saying, "You've got blood on your shirt." And it was quite extensive. So they were just going to get worse and worse and deeper and deeper. And that's what, and I think that's what my message would be. Don't be frightened. Don't worry about either ringing the doctor or having it. I mean, I've never done a video call in my life. It scares me to death at the moment. I'm frightened to death. I'm consciously keeping my fingers on here so I don't press any buttons. But it's nothing, you know, there's nothing to be frightened of. But there's nothing to be, it's nothing to be frightened of, and it's not wasting GP's time. It's not as though you're going with a bad cold or whatever and wasting time. It's important. It is important, you know. Well, it's life-threatening.
Yeah. I'm thinking, Bob, to my upbringing, which was in Ghana, West Africa, and we were very much a white family in a black community, and lived with no shoes and wore sarongs, and were very integrated with African life.
Yeah.
So we did get a lot of sun. And then later on, when my folks retired, my mum and dad had a property in Spain. And my life was jam-packed with work, but then I'd get 3 or 4 days off, jet out to Spain, get a tan, come back, work 10 days and keep doing that. So it was like the life of Riley, really. And I was really quite a sun worshipper, and having had breast cancer myself, I actually started questioning my behaviour, how much time I'd be in the sun. And I looked at my dad, because he'd be like you, get the shirt off, enjoy the sun rays. And we started to notice on his forehead some kind of like raised skin, but not like moles. And we did check it out with a dermatologist. I think we had something like an 18-week wait. And I remember going with my dad, and I just think now, if there's a message to give people,
I think it's your fence dudes.
It's Chaz with his drill.
Tell Chaz to shut up.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't realise that could happen. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's what I mean, because we were amazed. We had visitors from Australia, and this would be the late 80s, and they were very much into slip, slap, slop, which we never heard of. We couldn't believe, and they couldn't believe that we were going out in the sun with no protection. But we didn't ever think that it was needed. Okay, if you went abroad, you might put on a factor 5 or a bit of olive oil or something like that, but you wouldn't take it seriously. Whereas these days, very much seriously. Yeah.
I think the difference as well is, if you look at the research from cancer research, you do actually need vitamin D to help prevent skin cancer. And it's almost an irony that you need the vitamin D, which you get from the sun, but also at the same time, if you extend that and burn and get the damaged cells, it can then become skin cancer. So there's the balance. And I think the important message is it's a safe level of sun exposure without getting damage. Going out for 20 minutes and getting some sun on your forearms and on your face, fantastic. But if it goes beyond that, that's when it becomes damage and an issue.
It's interesting. I read an article the other day that rickets, which is a vitamin D deficiency. I mean, if you're going back to 1860s in Hull, where they used to dip the bread in the cod liver oil, but rickets is coming back because people are putting on factor 50 and never exposing their skin to the sun. And you suddenly, especially I believe in the Asian communities, where they are even worse at metabolizing vitamin D than we are, that rickets is becoming quite prevalent again. And I think you're right, that it is important to get some vitamin D. You can't get it all, from what I can gather, because you don't manufacture it, do you?
No, and
The
you can't store it either.
Yeah. So, you are getting some from food, but you do need a little bit. Yeah. And I mean, with our winters, I mean, from October onwards, I wouldn't have thought it was worthwhile going out, really, in terms of catching the sun for vitamin D. Because, I mean, the sun, I think it was talking about angles of the sun and where the sun had to be to enable you to. But my maths ain't good. I think it was a percentage, or might have been a fraction. We're not good at fractions, are
If
we?
it was a percent, we've got no hope. If it was a percent,
No, none at all. None at all. No.
which actually,
No.
unfortunately, does bring me to some percents.
Oh dear.
So the University College London have done some research over the coronavirus period, and they've noted a 60% drop in chemotherapy appointment attendance and 76% drop in cancer referrals. So your message is absolutely perfect. People have to, otherwise they're predicting 18,000 more deaths will occur because they haven't been.
There are two worries, I think. One, people are not going with the signs and symptoms that they used to do 8 weeks ago. But the other worry I've got is that some departments seem to be closing, or at least massively reducing, to enable us to cope with coronavirus. And yet it's these cancers that are not being treated. I mean, if you think of Sadie, she's had her scan put back. She's had it now. But I mean, there's a young lady who, the first scan that she had, they said it was grotesque. And yet the scan was put back. Not because Sadie didn't want it, but because I think the departments were almost frightened of inviting people in while coronavirus was that rampant. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a two-edged sword. People are frightened, yes. People don't like wasting time, but I also think the hospital have got to get that message over to say we are open, and we are open for business, and we are very, very, very much open for business.
Yeah.
What you say there, Bob, is a vital message, because I know there is a national campaign to say to people the door is revolving. We're open for business. But there's a fine line between enabling people to see what is happening at local levels. So it might be, for instance, in West Yorkshire, we have the Mid Yorkshire hospitals, and that's broken down into Pontefract, Dewsbury, and Pinderfields. So Pinderfields is predominantly COVID treated patients with other services going on, but one of the hospitals, Pontefract, has become a dedicated cancer centre. For me, the biggest problem is that the media, the news in general, is giving specifics and figures nationally that don't take into account what's happening locally. So you give a perfect example of, do you know what? Emma's got some great figures, but that might not apply to Castle Hill and your experience where you're living. So you've got a letter on the same day as your appointment, which might be a delay with Royal Mail and their backlog and staffing issues, but you got an appointment so quickly and treated literally. It's unknown.
It was amazing.
I'm hearing this in Wakefield, Leeds, Bradford, Hull, and it's refreshing. I think sometimes the media is giving the wrong impression that cancer patients or people with symptoms cannot be seen. And I understand also it must be so difficult for where things have been geared up to manage COVID, and then they need to retract into different areas or different services offered. For instance, we know that certain patients with chemotherapy regimes have been asked to move to other hospitals, and that's been more favourable for them to continue treatment and know they're not in a COVID area. So for me, the communication is so vital. What you've said is key to the whole conversation today. We need to be having these conversations with GPs, be it through a letter, through technology, and get reassurance that someone's going to see you, someone's going to treat you, and it might not be cancer. So I applaud everything that you've recommended, really. And I think if there's anything to be taken away from today, it's see a symptom. If in doubt, check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Your experience is, exemplary. It's fantastic. And I just think if people could see that by waiting until COVID is gone or less, the impact of waiting could be disastrous, couldn't it?
I think exactly. I think by waiting, what would be, I don't know, I hear about sort of different grades of cancer. I know Sadie's is grade 4, isn't it? But I mean, if it goes from grade 1 to grade 3, you're suddenly in very difficult territory, where, you require massive amounts of treatment. And if you go, I think the risks of coronavirus diminish compared to the risks of cancer, really. And that's the message I would give people. Get it sorted, get it done. I sound like Dominic Cummings, don't I? Get it sorted, get it done, save lives. When he's sacked, I can take his job, can't I?
It'll be about 5 o'clock this afternoon, I think, Dad.
Okay, right. Okay, I'm working on £54 an hour.
Get that CV done. Get that CV done.
But yeah, you're right. People, I've got to take the message away that it's incredibly important. I mean, the other example, of course, is the lady with Parkinson's in Hull, in Hornsey.
Lynn.
I mean, her mum waited breast cancer until she was terminal. There was absolutely nothing they could do. And Lynn said, she'd waited, and it looked terrible, and it was terrible to go, and it had spread and it had gone, and there was absolutely nothing. So, yeah.
I think perhaps at the beginning of the pandemic lockdown, the media were correcting how they reported because things were shifted and there were focuses within hospitals for it to be more to do with coronavirus. But as you've said and we've seen, people are starting to get the letters about scans and routine screenings, and Sadie, as you said, she's now had her scan. I think things are starting to move, but that doesn't seem to fit in the media reporting. And they don't seem to be putting that bit across. So things are progressing. People are getting treatment. They're getting their all the scans. Karen's had a scan, and it's just, I think that bit's missing to give the positivity edge.
Yes, I think so. I mean, let's face it. I mean, when Brexit was done, everybody thought, my God, we're going to get back to some proper news. And then suddenly COVID came, and that's dominated it. There's absolutely nothing else on the news, is there?
Nope.
I mean, in the hour that I have my breakfast from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, the message must be, I must see the same news item 4 times. I mean, it drives your mum mad. But
you know what?
4 times, and
breakfast, Bob, 8 till 9.
We have a lot. It's a large breakfast.
But it will. I mean, and there's got to be that that other news and the other side of the daisy, if you like. Yes, hospitals are coping, they are managing, and I suppose it is dangerous to go in some hospitals. I mean, you're not allowed to visit people. But the other side of it, because I don't know what they've done in Hull, in the East Riding. I don't know whether Hull and Scarborough and Beverley are COVID hospitals, and they're having Castle Hill open. There's just no news on that. But having said that, it wouldn't make local news, And your mum was very much a Guardian reader these days.
Ooh.
Well, this morning anyway.
Is that because she couldn't get another paper?
I came up on her phone, and she came downstairs and she said, "I was just reading the Guardian." What?
Did they run out of the Hull Daily Mail?
Yeah, there's no sport.
She's getting a good balance of news, to be fair.
It is, yeah.
I'm watching the news, Bob, at the moment. It's just the same stuff being churned out, and then a bit of propaganda for somebody else, and a bit of politics for somebody else. And I think it's paramount that we hear the success of patients. You've kind of left me with a little gap, a sandwich that I need to fill, really. When you've said it's great if you've not heard anything for 2 weeks, getting your results back. But what would be a perfect solution would be to get a call to confirm that.
Yes, it would.
If you had the information, like the music behind the words to that message, and you were told, actually, Bob, the reality is all of the pathology labs are absolutely backed up with COVID, and maybe we're not communicating in the same way, but if we do contact you, there's a reason to talk and discuss something. But if we don't, please take peace of mind from that.
Yeah.
Help deal with that message.
Yeah, yes, you can deal with it. And to be fair, when I think back, that's what the lady said, that the labs are absolutely chocker with COVID testing. And that was the reason. I would imagine in normal circumstances, I would get, as soon as the pathology is done, I would get some kind of letter or phone call or something. They're just strange times. But again, I'll say again, just because they're strange times, don't give up on it. Follow any, because I mean, I don't care what people say, your own body, don't you? And when things change, and when things aren't quite right. And there's nothing wrong with just saying to the doctor, either the bowels aren't working as they were, because that was one of the signs of Peter's bowel cancer. He just said he was going from diarrhea to nothing for days and days and days. And so he knew that something was changing, and he had the conversation for the same reason that we are a family that has cancer. But don't ignore those signs and just think, I'll take some more, like your grandma did, I'll take some more tablets, because there aren't the tablets to cure it. I mean, everybody thinks there's a pill to cure everything. No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
No, it
but yeah,
sometimes needs more intervention than that, doesn't it?
I should be sunny Hornsey this weekend, celebrating my birthday.
Hornsey, Dad.
Hornsey, yeah. So I was supposed to be there for the weekend with lovely Nikki Tomlinson, and the sun is shining at home. And I thought to myself, you know what? Some people would be really fed up, because we've got to May and every holiday so far this year has had to be cancelled.
Yeah.
I've been in shielding mode. There's a lot of positives about staying at home and staying safe. Are you self-isolating or shielding yourself at the moment?
No, because
This
I
will be
think I don't.
interesting, Sara.
I'm not going to ask your age, Bob.
You see, I don't fall into that category. I'm only nearly 69. So I've got a year to go before I fall into that category. And I suppose one of the reasons is that my son and daughter are both into health and fitness. And I'm actually a pretty fit guy with things I can do. And I think, well, actually, when I look at some people who are struggling to walk down the main street in Driffield, and I can literally run to where I'm going, I think, hang on a minute, it's a bit, it's a bit like you were saying about horses for courses and around. I think I'd go mad if I had to go and lock myself in the house. So even though we've got a lovely garden, and I've got lots of things. So I am really quite active, and I don't like being. And I suppose I'm. Close your ears, Emma Kirke. I'm an awkward cuss.
Shock horror.
I know. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I had no idea. No.
No. No.
Some groundbreaking news, that, Dad. Groundbreaking.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes.
Can I just say that Dad likes his garden, but also the birds like to nest in Dad's hair, don't they?
That's a whole new meaning to nesting.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. Yeah.
But I know what you're saying, Dad, though. There are like a lot of people who are over 70. And this is one of the arguments, isn't it, about the ageism? If there are people who are over 70 who are fit, and there are people who are 50 that are very unfit.
Yes.
And to say a blanket, if you're over 70, you must do this. I'm not sure that's individually correct. But you can't as a nation just have that kind of individual scenario.
No,
and that's the problem. But I mean, if you've used common sense and applied common sense to that, in that you are fit. You are now probably fitter than you were 10 years ago, even.
Yep.
And I was talking to a lady from Public Health England, and she said about now they've decided that a third of these people are diabetic that are having worse symptoms. And she said to me, I'm worried because I'm pre-diabetic. And I said, the whole nation's pre-diabetic. Everyone is pre-diabetic until you get diabetes.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to say, but you do look after yourself, and I think if you've applied common sense to the situation. You live in Driffield. I mean, it's not exactly like it's not like London, is it?
No, it's not. No, we have at street.
Exactly. You can avoid people quite easily, can't you?
Yeah.
On your street.
There is at shop.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we do have fruit and veg delivered, so we don't have to visit the because we always try and buy our food and everything not from Tesco. We never have. We like buying a paper from the paper shop, veg from the veg shop, meat from the butcher shop. Because I mean, both children, my children, are in business on their own, without people saying, I don't want to go to a huge gym. I'll go to a small gym. Otherwise, they will be out of business. And so, yes, we do. We're very much aware of social distancing. We're very much aware of your mum will go in the butcher shop. I won't go in, but I'll wait outside on the way, well down the way. Otherwise, you get. Are you queuing? Wait for a taxi. But I mean, we're very much aware of how we should go on. And again, Driffield is a very, actually, it's a very nice, well-mannered place. There are very, very few difficult places to get. I mean, the biggest difficulty we have sometimes is two people passing on a pavement. I mean, Chaz is doing the fence. and he was saying, going back to Hornsey, last week, midweek, Hornsey Beach was packed, absolutely packed. And he said there was no social distancing. Everyone was just out, because it was almost the first time they could get out. The chip shops were open, the candy floss was open. And when somebody said, well, how come you're opening? Well, it's food. So they're using every opportunity, but it's all open. Bridlington are fighting hard to keep people away, I think, but Hornsey is more open. It's, I wouldn't advise going at the moment.
And it's ironic, isn't it? Because the average age of Hornsey, it's technically a retirement town.
It is, yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, but it's people coming from Hull, as I said, they want to get out now. They've had enough. They want to get out. In fact, some people need to get out. I think your brother was getting similar to that, needing to get out. Sorry, love.
It's all right, Bob. I think there's a fine balance between mental health and coping with literally being locked away, not being able to leave the house. I've only left to deliver medical supplies to my parents because prescriptions have been sent to my, then to send to their address, and it's been a one-off thing, and I am pining to, spend time with my friends, my family, and all these virtual things. Like we're having a chat today, is absolutely wonderful. But you can't reach out and say, hug time, I'm feeling it now. And some people's behaviours are really quite erratic. And I don't want to judge them because I don't know what's going on for them. But why would I drive to Hornsey if there's no toilets open? It's like a no-brainer. I would not drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to plait my legs and come back home and use the loo.
Or put your cosy on and go in the sea. Oh my God. Yeah, you see, I don't want to see my kids, but I do want a scone in a cafe with a double espresso and not squirty cream. I want clotted cream with jam on it, and it has to be strawberry jam. But to see the kids, no, I'm not bothered.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, Dad.
Yeah, this will do me.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible father. Terrible father.
It's funny though, because I said the other day, we had that trial sort of chat over the internet, and it's almost like I want to make a new word up. Saddiness. It was a sad because I couldn't give you a hug, but also happy I got to see you, and
yes,
and it's a bizarre feeling, really.
Yes, it is. I came off almost thinking, I wish I hadn't seen her.
Yeah.
Because it does leave a space.
Yeah.
And you think, you're only 60 miles away, and yet it seems like the moon, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're still not going to get there. But yeah, it was a strange feeling. It was strange because it was the first time I'd ever done it. And so I was panicking about also, and Mum put the computer on my knee. Well, me, I'll turn all over the place, and suddenly you're getting a picture of the spider in the corner and whatever. It was a strange feeling. There was a feeling of emptiness when you went. Yes, but
you feel better. My dad has a mobile phone, and we have spent hours figuring out how to switch it on. And now it's permanently on. And if I ring it, say, Molly, my phone's ringing. And she'll say, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's quite familiar. This is a guy using this technology today who usually says to me, Emma, I can't hear anything through this mobile phone, but Dad, it's the same as a normal phone. No, it's not. It doesn't work quite the same. I don't understand it.
No,
The
or
secret,
even
Bob,
worse, I can't hear anything through this mobile phone. Dad, you're holding the telly changer. Oh yes, got it. Or you try turning the telephone off, or television on with the mobile
Oh,
phone.
yeah.
The date on my mobile phone is the 26th of April, 2005.
Oh,
Can I
Dad,
just?
hold on. We've got a message for you.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Wendy Dunnigan, my favourite teacher ever. Good to see you, Mr. Kirk. Glad you're well.
Oh yes, Wendy Dunnigan. Yes, yeah. No, remember her well. Yes.
Well, you were her
Has she
favourite
grown?
teacher, look.
Oh well, I mean, has she grown? That's what gets me.
I'll ask her. I'll ask her.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
not sure that's very PC, Bob.
I can't show you, but she was, a tiny little mite, and I kept tripping over her and falling on her and things like that. Because my eye line was looking somewhere else.
Great things come in small packages.
Yeah, but there were fun days. I mean, amazingly, the Chaz is putting up the fence, and it's an ex-pupil who is doing it with, who's immediately, you don't always remember the name, but you know the face. Wow, I used to teach you. Yes, you did.
Well, Wendy
No,
says
I haven't.
she hasn't grown.
Oh, right. Still 3'9".
Bless her.
She was lovely. I could have taught 60 in a class of Wendy. I mean, she was so lovely. She was so appreciative of things you did and worked hard, did everything. She was brilliant.
Well,
don't tell her.
I think she must need
Don't tell her.
glasses, Dad. I think she must need glasses because she said you look well, so I'm not sure what she's looking at.
Yeah, but she didn't finish it off. I look well for a 90-year-old.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I look well for a corpse. I can see him when I'm in my coffin laying there. I say, "Oh, don't you look well? Eh? Aren't you scrubbed up nice?" I didn't know that suit would still fit him.
Oh, dear. I think we're going off on a tangent. We're borderline
Okay.
talking about Monty Python in a minute, Dad.
There's something definitely in the gene here.
Oh yes, we can quote we can quote Python at each other for hours, can't we?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. I don't want the curtains.
Sarah, is there anything you need to say, or do you want to add anything before we wrap up?
I think really it's a privilege to know that you've got a family that can talk openly about the different kinds of cancers and take that history and say, you know what, I need to check this out just to be sure. Because so many people in today's society fear cancer, so do nothing about it.
Mhm.
And you talk openly and freely, which to me is just to be, the norm. And I'm not seeing it happen at the moment with a lot of people. They go into meltdown if something's changed and they're not reacting and thinking logically. But you have got so much cancer genetics in your family that I think it stood you in good stead to be reactive, to own your diet, to be fit. I mean, I applaud what you're doing, Bob. You're doing more fitness than me at the moment, and that's something that I really miss. So I just feel very humbled that you've shared your history and been positive about your experiences.
The only thing about that is you also realise that Emma and Ian are both bigger than me. And if I don't do my fitness training on a night and I don't make the progress that I should have done, life is miserable. Oh, no, worse, they ask for money. I mean, I'm busy at the moment making these £3 notes, and I'm you know, melting down my teeth to make sovereigns.
Oh, I feel some Jewishness coming out here.
Oh, in this life, one thing counts.
Funny talk.
Well, no, it's been lovely talking to you, and it's good to see people laughing and enjoying themselves, but also I hope they take the message on seriously. It is a serious message, and it's a serious thing to do. But, get on with life as well. Have a laugh, have a joke, but get on with it. Keep the serious things to the forefront as well. It's been lovely to see you.
Brilliant.
No, I don't know how to turn off.
That's fine. I can sort that out for you, Dad.
All right, okay. If I just go,
Just
well, that's a lie because I've got two hands.
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you take care of
See you
both of
soon,
you.
Dad.
All right, bye.